Hey, I'm Brian Van, sportbiketracker.com, and today we're going to install the all-new driven captive chain adjusters on our Yamaha STG-R3 project bike. Okay, if you run a 15 to a 20 and beyond Yamaha R3 and you've changed the rear tire, you've already discovered this OEM axle block adjuster design is less than amazing. It leaves a lot to be desired. When you pull the rear axle, right, all this shit just starts falling out. It makes putting the rear tire back on very difficult. There are multiple solutions currently in the marketplace to help alleviate that concern. This is the latest release from our friends at Driven. In typical Driven style, there is some kick-ass machining, right? It's an aesthetically pleasing part available in multiple colors. I decided to go with blue. It's gonna look pretty cool on our bike, right? You've got a captured nut. You have a cam design here. As you tighten these down, it's gonna put a little outward pressure against the upper and lower edges of the swing arm internally to hold this adjuster block into position. Looks like a pretty intuitive design, and it should get the job done. So for this install, right, we're going to cover the tools that we need, and I'm going to show you the process that I would use to install this on my R3. I've got two 12mm wrenches here. We need to first break loose and remove the jam nuts for the OEM axle block adjuster. I'm going to go ahead and save these because we will need to reuse at least one of them on each side. In preparation for this, I sprayed a little Maxima MPPL on the threads. This is a 2015, got a lot of miles on this bike now. And for that reason, you're going to get a little micro corrosion, right, built up. And that's just going to make the job a little bit easier. So we'll pull these from both sides. You need to be able to support the rear of the bike. With a rear stand, we got a pit bull stand here. When I take the tire off, I actually have a pit crew tire wedge. That tool just makes it a whole lot easier as it supports the tire from the bottom. I'm not going to pull the axle, and I'll explain to you here in just a second why. You can see already that's just falling off. Okay, and it's going to be that way on both sides. Normally, the whole adjuster assembly is just going to fall right on out of there, right? Because there's nothing to hold it in place. Installation. The part is universal, meaning that it can be on the right or the left side. All that you need to do is make sure that this tab aligns with this slot that is relieved in the inside portion of the swing arm. So at the end of the day, this tab needs to face inboard towards the wheel on either side. I have not yet removed the axle. That is something we're going to do. But at this point in the process, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have this thing flush against the back portion of the swing arm, that surface right here, okay? And in my opinion, the easiest way to get there is going to be by using pressure from tightening the nut itself. And what I want you to do is, as you tighten that down, I want you to make sure that it is sitting even, okay? If you have it cocked, say if one of the raised portions here is not sliding into the swing arm, right? You need to move it around as you put some pressure on it to get it to go into position. Take that socket off now. I'm gonna put a wrench on it. I'm gonna put just a little bit of additional pressure. It's about a quarter turn. Got a 5mm T-handle here. Go ahead and thread these down. Make a couple of passes here. There was no, in the instructions, I didn't see any torque spec. Sure we get them nice and even. All right, that feels good. Now we'll go over to the other side. Okay, we're on to the other side now. I want to give you just a little tip here too that I think you're going to find to be very beneficial. Before you start the install, okay, I want you to kind of run these down so they're just lightly seated, and then back them off just enough so they're loose. What I found is if these are if that bolt's backed out a significant amount, what happens is when you go to tighten it down, it wants to bind down the ramp and you can't get it to bite properly. Installation on the chain side, make sure the tab is facing inboard. Using your thumb and your index finger, put a little pressure in on those cams to make sure they clear the edge of the swing arm. And now, before you really start to put pressure on it, right, kind of wiggle it around and make sure that all the raised portions are lined up and are able to go inside the hole in the back of the swing arm. Kind of finger tight there. About a quarter turn. As I showed you on the other side, just get each side to kind of seat. Double check the torque one more on the other side. Feels pretty good. Okay, now I think I'm going to reuse the washers. We run our axle, right, with a pretty long wheelbase. Bike seems to handle better. Max seems to prefer it that way. Okay, so I'm going to put the washer in. That's just so we don't screw up the aluminum driven nut. Like so. Now I want to pull the axle just to verify that everything's held in there tight, and then we can go ahead and go through the process of setting the slack on our chain. I'm going to use the Pit Crew tire wedge. Got a 22 millimeter socket and 19 millimeter wrench. I have flip-flopped my axle, okay? The nut normally would be on the right side of the bike. I have it on the left, so it's on the same side as the axle up in the front. That's just a personal preference thing. Let's take a look at these. Okay. They are not falling out, okay? They are held firmly into position, so we can go ahead and throw the rear wheel back on. Certainly, this is the prettiest solution when it comes to holding those axle adjusters in place while you're doing your tire changes, right? The other ones get the job done too. Yeah, we've even went as far as to show you one that can be done for $0 using a little bit of safety wire. We've already went through, we've shown you chain slack adjustment multiple times, right? So we're not gonna go through and do all that. One thing that I like to do when I'm torquing everything back down, I like to put a wrench or a screwdriver in the sprocket side like this, and I'll rotate it back, and I like to just Just whack that a couple times and put a little pressure. I have been actually torquing this axle, right? And the torque spec is 41 foot-pounds. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to pull that out. That feels like about 41. Okay, you've got everything wrapped up. It's all wheels torqued up. You've got your chain adjusted. You need to make sure that you come and tighten up your jam nuts. Do that on both sides. As stated earlier, we're not going to go through the whole chain adjustment procedure. We've done that several times in so many videos at this point. You know, and this really isn't about doing that, right? That's a pretty basic procedure on the R3 or any other bike. Advantages to this. One of the advantages to this is the fact that that nut is captured, okay? And this is threaded. When you have your chain tension all dialed in and you're doing your tire change with these, it's going to hold the axle adjusters in that exact same position. So when you pull the axle, right, nothing is migrating. Like with the fix that we did where you use a safety wire and you drill through the caps, right? We have an old video on that. This portion here is still able to float because remember the jam nuts are tightened against one another and they're on this shaft, on that rod. So this piece still floats freely in there and it does move around and it can make it just a slight pain in the ass in order to get that axle back through if one is misaligned. So this is going to hold each side, you know, in a relatively precise position because the threads are fixed. They're held into position, right, and captured inside that axle block adjuster. So that's going to be the real advantage to these, plus they look super pretty. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments section of this video. I answer all that stuff myself, and I'm here to help you all get the same result from your project we do from ours.